Oop, oop. There we are.
Hey,
You got
how we doing?
good, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Dude, Aval, it's like 2 a.m. for you, right?
It is, yeah, it is.
My God.
It was
Are you
worth it
normally a
just to
night
see
owl?
all your unboxing, just to see all the stuff you're unboxing. It was totally worth it.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I appreciate you slamming some extra coffee for me and hanging out. So tell me about Bad Mosquito Films. I was trying to do as much pre-research as I could, and then I thought it'd be easier if I just let you tell me than try and figure it out myself.
Yeah, so basically, I would say I'm more of a content creator. I kind of do filmmaking. I make one sheets, so posters. I do sort of social media content, videos for people and for guys like yourself.
Oh no, is this still working for anybody? We're back.
Yeah. Hello.
Man, Instagram never ceases
Technical,
to fail right when you need it to work.
technical difficulty. You got to have technology, haven't you? It's great.
It's
I don't.
awesome. So I think we got as far as what's Bad Mosquito? And you said I'm more of a content creator. And
Yeah, that's right. And it went whoop. Yeah, so when technology works, yeah, I kind of so everything from kind of films to posters to kind of social media content. I dabble in VFX and do kind of good stuff like that as well. So yeah, basically anything kind of creative and kind of like comics and things like that myself. So anything kind of creative and kind of a digital kind of form, I kind of dabble in and kind of do really.
that's awesome. And so uh, the Kickstarter that is running right now is for the conversation with ASAP Imagination, which Lori Cunningham is tied in with, and she's been on the show, and I was on her show, and so like that's how all of this came to be. But like, how did you working with ASAP and with Lori, and like how did that partnership happen?
Yeah, so it was kind of weird. I mean, much like most of sort of the opportunities I've had, I've been quite lucky really that I seem to be right place, right time a little bit, and I think a lot of it's due to kind of putting yourself in that right position in the first place. So I was actually at an event called the Never Ending Fantasy Con, which is run by Con, who I do a lot of work with, and it was an 80s fantasy movie event. So yeah, it was Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, kind of all that good stuff, and say Never Ending Story. And I was there because I was filming for the event, and I also went to see Tanya Stronach, who's from the Neverending Story. She played the childlike empress. I'd done some work with her on her most recent film, Man and Witch. So I'd sort of spoken to her like we are now, but never actually met her in the flesh. So it was kind of nice to go along and say hello to her and her husband and meet them. So I was filming the event, and one of the actors who we've actually cast in the conversation, Kieran, I work with him quite often. He he was just outside randomly, but he was dressed kind of like as a bard because he was doing a lot of presenting and promo stuff. So
Okay.
he's dressed in kind of a bard like this Shakespearean character, and Hades saw him and was like, he looks like the kind of guy I want to speak to. And they got talking, and where I worked with Kieran, he kind of hooked me up with Hades. And the minute we kind of had a conversation, we knew, we were brothers from another mother. We were just so identical. It was
Yeah.
crazy. Um, and instantly, once he told me about the comic book world they had and, everything that was, I saw that wealth of, comic books and the lore that they had, I was definitely interested and thought, wow, this is something I really want to
Yeah.
get in on. And that was it. Once he told me his plan and kind of what he wanted to do, I was like, yep, cool, come in, I'm on board.
That's awesome. So it's like it's so tell me about the conversation. I know the Kickstarter says it's like a short film,
Yeah.
but like other than that, like what's the plan for it?
So basically, it's a extension of the comics. So you're probably well aware yourself, the kind of world that already exists within ASAP Imagination. We're kind of building on that, really. So we didn't want to kind of do just take one of the stories from already existing comics. We wanted this to be a canon story that then adds to the piece, the greater world. And we thought, well, usually if you try and moving stuff from one media to another, you do like an origin story. But we were like, no, let's just kind of go straight with the crossover, straight out the bat. So it's the Dead Knight from the Dead of Night comic series and Foe, who's from the Messiah comic series. It's about their chance encounter, the first time they kind of meet, which hasn't happened in the comics. So this is kind of an ASAP first. So yeah, it's about kind of they kind of meet each other and kind of suss each other out. It's like, are they on the same side? Are they against each other? And the film is basically showing what happens in that encounter. So it's quite exciting.
I love that approach of doing something that hasn't been done yet, that just happens in the universe that already exists. Like those extra offshoot stories and like tangent stories and stuff like those enhancers are what I really enjoy. Even when thinking about like the MCU, it initially, when they were trying with like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you would watch the movie and then you would turn on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you were like, oh, they're talking about Hydra taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. Like it's not covered in the movies and it's different. And then when they were trying to tie in the comics, but then that got too confusing with everything. But like, I love that idea of just being able to play and expand in that world. Like, how was there like a conversation that you had with ASAP of like, hey, this is like, did they approach you with this is what we want to show? Or were they like, hey, here's our world, we would love to do something like a short film? What ideas would you like? How did that like the birth of the idea for this come from?
So it was pretty much all Hades. I mean, he's got one of those brains that there's 2,000 tabs open all at once. So it's kind of running quite frantically in there all the time. And the man never sleeps. But yeah, no, when he approached me and said, look, I want to kind of do this. I want to kind of bring some of these characters to live action. He kind of was toying with a few ideas, and this is one I think he really wanted to kind of open up with. And when he sort of came to me and said, right, basically, this is kind of what I want to do. How do we do this? So he came and come to me with my kind of expertise to kind of actually bring it to the screen. And then we've kind of like the story is basically his, but I've kind of adapted little bits where I said, obviously he's used to writing panels. So doing things in actually having motion and moving, it kind of we get that luxury of time where it's kind of you don't have to cram it into a panel because you've got limited pages.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice that we can kind of take a bit more time and kind of really dive in and just kind of change how the panels would have looked and then make it more kind of live action feel. So it's quite interesting.
That's awesome. Now, how involved are you? Like, what's your role with the short film specifically? Like, are you directing the film?
Well, I'm directing, and I'll be editing as well, and probably doing or helping do some of the visual effects, that kind of stuff.
Cool. Now, is that something that like Hades is able to be there as you're filming, or is it like is he just involved in all the post work?
No, he's kind of eager to learn and kind of jump in. He's like, again, well, he's added to his tab system in his brain, so he's like he kind of wants to get on set. He's kind of there on a producer capacity, and kind of there. I mean, it's kind of a co-director too. He's kind of learning. Again, it's important for me as the filmmaker to make sure it's his vision and his world. So I need to make sure that he's happy and that I'm doing justice to him and the fans and everybody out there that kind of wants to see it. So yeah, so he's going to be right there next to me, making sure I'm doing the job properly and making sure I get those characters right. So yeah, it's going to be quite exciting.
That's neat. I saw the poster of like the split of the two characters. That's a cool poster, man. Like how is it balancing? Have you done Kickstarter for film projects before?
No, actually, this is the very first one I've done. Obviously, Hades is a kind of old hat with it, doing the comics and things. He's done these before, but no, this is actually my first experience. I've worked on projects where they've had a Kickstarter running, but I wasn't kind of directly involved. I maybe made some posters for it, or video work and that kind of thing,
Okay.
but never directly kind of involved with the actual process of putting it together, doing the rewards, all that stuff. So that's been really kind of interesting and really quite a good one for me to kind of learn. Oh, okay, this is how it kind of works, and I think it's a really great platform to actually have people who want to watch the film kind of partake in it. I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it does. It does give a very unique connection with the crowd that, instead of like, I made the thing and now you're at a convention and you like the thing, so you're going to buy it. Like, now you have that direct, like, no, I want to see this so much that I'm willing to put money up front
Yeah,
to see it happen. Like, and the project's fully funded, which is awesome.
yeah. Right.
I'm sure, like, it's got what, 12
I think it's
days,
about
11 days left?
12 days. Yeah, I think it's the 2nd of June it ends officially.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I know, like, so Kickstarter always takes that 2-week time period to release funds. Like, are you waiting until those funds are released to then start the production on it? Or, like, what's the timeline look like for that?
No, I think we're pretty much ready to sort of go. We've kind of built. We're still finishing off the Dead Knight suit. So that's kind of one of the things we still need to do. Foe's pretty much good to go. We've got our locations down. We pretty much know where we're shooting. It kind of the backdrop is London. So that's kind of, we were shooting in London, and we're London-esque sort of cities to kind of just give it the flavour. Its script's kind of there. We're just in the bounds of choreo because obviously the guys might not get on, so they might have to have a little tussle. So we're just working out the sort of how that's going to look and what we kind of want to do with that. Flo being very acrobatic and kind of parkour. Sonny, who's playing him, is a free runner. He's a parkour guy, so he's well averse to kind of jumping around and doing flips. So it's really interesting to see what he can do and how we can utilize that in our story. So yeah, it's really good. So we're pretty much good to go. We're not dependent on it, but we kind of, it helps to kind of keep production going and make sure everyone's fed and kind of just go into production so that we can sort of finish off, do the visual effects, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's yeah, I can't wait to kind of get shooting.
That's awesome. I love that. Like, I just think it's such a cool idea. When Lori
Thank
was
you.
telling me about it when I was on her show, and we were just drawing movie posters, and like she was saying like, yeah, we've got this Kickstarter, and like we're doing a short film with characters that are in our comic book universe, but like new tale, and it's a new thing, and everything was new. And I was like, man, that's the most exciting time for any
Yeah.
project, is like when it's something new and you can experiment and do something different and work on like utilizing, okay, what do we have to work with? Like, oh, you can do parkour stuff, awesome, like let's figure that out. Like that to me is that fun aspect of creation. So like but you don't just direct, and like you're doing all of the things. Like, do you find that you get into like, I'm going to do directing projects for a while, I'm going to do graphic stuff for a while and focus on that? Or are you like, I'm going to do directing during the day and then I'll get home and do some graphic stuff, and then tomorrow I'm doing edit? Like, are you all the pots all the time, or are you just like, nope, put on my blinders?
It's pretty much all the pots all the time, unless there's a big project. So like once we heavily go into shooting for the conversation, that will probably take up a good chunk of my time, because obviously there'll be a lot to do. There'll be shooting, there'll be kind of then transferring and then kind of getting it all in, getting it edited, and then you got Foley, the sound effects, you kind of got all the visual effects and stuff, because this is then stuff that we've had to, it's been interesting for Hades to kind of have to think about that, because ordinarily, the world is created other than any sounds you write. It's kind of, there are no sounds. It's all in the viewer's head. So suddenly going, oh, how do you want this to sound, or how is this going to work on camera, and what's the background noise, what the TV sounds, all the stuff that fills the world. Suddenly he's like, oh, I have to think about what that involves. So it's kind of, that's great for me to kind of taking him in a new direction, and it's cool seeing all that come to fruition. It's kind of good. But yeah, pretty much it's like on a general basis, it might be if I'm working on a project, if I'm doing some visual effects for it, sometimes I might do a poster, or if I do the visual effects, it could be they need social media stuff, so they're like, oh, can you make us like a motion poster or something like that? So I sort of dabble and jump around, but usually it's till the project's done. So if it's a poster, it's that, and then I'll do maybe some visual effects, or if once that's done, it might be social media, or if I'm writing myself, so writing a script, I'll devote the time for that. So yeah, it's pretty much like anything, you bounce from whatever's needed on the day.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the fun of, like, I've been on some video shoots and such, and like that's the fun of being there, because even in like, I did a 48-hour like film festival thing, and we
Oh,
went
cool.
from like, we're gonna shoot like crazy in the morning and then start editing to make sure that we're on the right track, and then if we need to go back and do reshoots or pickups, or if we just need to focus more on like, okay, now we need to get B-roll because we're gonna have a voiceover, well now we're gonna record the voiceover too, and like just thinking about all those different things and being like scrappy and very almost like aggressively entrepreneurial of like, what needs to get done, how am I going to get it done, let's go. Is that part of like who you just always have been, or is that something that you're finding more as you've gotten further and further into this creation aspect, that you're like, oh no, I like getting the hands dirty and going out and doing all of the things all the time? Like, where has that always been a thing for you?
Yeah, so kind of, I mean, pretty much, when I first sort of started, it was more camera work, so I was kind of doing more camera stuff. But kind of what I like about it is I tend to be hands-on. Again, much like Hades, this is why we work so well together. I pretty much have multiple tabs open all the time. So yeah, when I'm on, because I have a knowledge of VFX and kind of graphics and things like that. So when I'm on, if I'm just doing a directing job, or maybe it's like a bit of cinematography or something, it's good that on set I can kind of go, oh, how are we shooting this? Okay, let's do it like this. So if there isn't a visual effects supervisor on set, or even if there is, I can kind of liaise and say, right, this is what we want to do. What were you thinking? Okay, yeah, I'm going to do it like this or do it like that. So sometimes that's quite handy, that because you have multiple facets, you can kind of work better with the different departments, and it's a better working relationship when you all kind of understand each other's job a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I try to be as hands-on as I can. Like if I'm just directing, I try to sort of help and do bits and bobs where I can. If it's needed, obviously I don't try and step on anyone's toes, and make sure that if they've got their own job and they've got the department they want to just stick to it themselves, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy, and just kind of get stuck in if I can help. If I need to put up a lighting rig, I'll help out there, or gaffer tape somewhere, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a team effort, isn't it? I mean, even if it's a big production, I know kind of everyone has their own jobs, but I kind of like to be, I'll get the coffees, I'll kind of help people, I'll kind of do whatever you can, really, because I think it's a family unit, and you're all working for the betterment of the project. So that's what should come first, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the parallels of that, and then working in comics and having, like, you might have the titles of writer and artist and colorist and letterer and editor and all of the things, but really, like, when it comes down to it, it ends up being that the artist is just as much of a writer as the writer is, of like, visually and sequentially, this flow I think would work better than what you initially imagined, and then colorists might come in and be able to be like, hey, I know you wanted this, but like this color palette for this specific shot or whatever. And so like it's just, there's something magical about getting that team of creative people that understand the end goal and the mission and what it takes to get there. And then when you're a part of that and everybody's firing everywhere, like, man, there's a magic about that if you haven't been there is so hard to describe.
Yeah.
um but I just think it's great that they crossing the platform of comics into film, like, because the initial post in my research, I was looking at your Instagram, um you first posted about this partnership in October
That's right.
of 24. So like, what has that been planning and like writing and pre-production with Hades since then? Or like, was that just the, hey, we had this talk and I think we're going to do this thing, and like we're still figuring out how that's going to come to be? Because the Kickstarter is running now, so clearly there was like pre-work that went into it. Like, what led up to the Kickstarter launch and where we are now?
Yeah, so pretty much exactly what you said. It was kind of, we met, we kind of had an initial discussion, like, what do you want to do? Okay, yeah, how could I help with that? Okay, what do we want to do? How do we work together? That was the other important thing, is kind of, how do we, what kind of partnership do we see? Because again, it's, as you said, it's very 50-50, although he's kind of the comics and he's kind of created this world. It's up to me to bring it to kind of, his vision forward. So we were like, does that work? How do we work, gel with each other? Do we kind of see creatively, are we in the same alignment? So, and once that was a kind of clear yes, which was pretty much the one conversation really, we were like, yeah, okay, this is definitely going to work out fine. We just kind of, planned really, who do we want to bring out? What do we want to do? What kind of, what do we want to lead up to? So again, it wasn't just this kind of one that we were thinking about. We've kind of, there are plans for future kind of places to go and little kind of Easter eggs and things we can drop in to kind of lead us to further down the line. And it's also, other actors, casting it, kind of building out the social media world as well. We've been kind of doing that in the background a little bit. So yeah, it's been kind of very interesting, just kind of, getting all the chess pieces ready. And now we kind of feel like, right, let's get in the game. Let's kind of start moving these and start showing what we can do. So, this is now kind of, we've got all our planning to go. The conversation is kind of, ready to go. And then we're also looking at this as like a proof of concept in a way as well, to show, look, this is what we could kind of do. This is what we've done with, raising money ourselves and kind of do it through, Kickstarter, and hopefully kind of then have, investment in there to kind of make maybe a bigger feature, and then, build something out bigger there from then. So that's the kind of more future plan for it.
That's cool. You beat me to that, because I was like, so what? I mean, like, what's that? You're making this short now. Are you gonna just keep and I would imagine it would have to be some sort of like proof of concept to make sure like this format works, not just for the storytelling, but for that universe, for the character, like for the for Hades to have that, like, I feel really good about how this turned out. Do you, if everything went perfectly, is making a feature film like the end goal, or would you rather play around in the universe, making more shorts and just have fun telling those different little side stories that are happening alongside the comics that are also coming out still?
I think it would be a little bit of all of it, to be honest. I think, again, it's that great kind of, kid in a sandbox. I think we kind of, we want to do some features. Again, some of the characters might work better if you kind of, as we were saying earlier, like, you've got the TV show and you introduce them kind of slower, or again, there's potential to do a TV show. I think we're also conscious of the fact we don't want to oversaturate either. We kind of want to do all these little things, maybe bring animation into it as well, because again, it does stem from a comic book world. So we want to keep that, we don't want to forget that, because obviously that's really important. I think so many people go, all right, well, we're moving on from the comics now. It's like, no, that's the source material, that's the important stuff.
Yeah.
So, we kind of want to, go alongside that, and equally use the comics to, facilitate the films that we move on as well. If we surpass some of the stories, and we can kind of go, okay, well, the movie is, maybe the fourth installment, and then, the next comic that comes out is actually then the fifth installment, that kind of thing. So sort of build it onto it. So yeah, it's important to kind of make sure we have it all and it all works together, because I think it's so easy to lose sight sometimes, isn't it? And like, as you were saying, you've got to watch the film, and then you've got to watch the TV show, and then you've got to do this, and you've got to do the other thing. And people sort of, I think some people, if they're not truly invested and some of it's not quite up to par, they'll just block out. So yeah, we're always like making sure that, make sure we deliver something good, and we don't sort of go, oh, well, we Marvel Studios it and go flying into the, so far focused on the future that we're forgetting where we are now. It's really important to just know we take it each one at a time and kind of, build into it, but do it with a future goal in mind. And I think that's kind of the best way to kind of move forward, I think.
That's cool. And so to completely change gears, like what initially inspired you to get into making film to begin with?
Just being a fan, really. Was watching films, again, reading comics. I was a big kind of Wolverine fan, kind of Marvel fan, reading the comics, He-Man, all that sorts of stuff for growing up. Watching films, major film fan. And it was weird, in the UK, although we had Pinewood Studios, it was never really, as I grew up, I was born in the 80s, kind of grew up in the 90s. we were never kind of, instilled, oh, you could become a filmmaker. It wasn't kind of something that was really pushed on us at school. They were just no real kind of, go into the arts or go into the sort of, creative realm. It was kind of just, get a job, pay the bills, carry on. So it was never, I think, for somebody who was such a film fan, it was really bizarre that it was never a drive for me. I used to draw, I kind of, again, love comics, I do my own drawings, and every job I've ever worked, it was, oh, wow, you're a really good drawer, you should draw. And it's like, it's not that easy. You don't just go, oh, I can really draw good stuff. How many people out there like yourselves, you can draw really well, brilliant, but now what do I do with that? So it was one of those things I just always thought, oh, I'll get around to it at some point, I'll do something. And then, as chance would have it, just that creative bug. If you're a creative person, it's there. It doesn't matter what facet you join it to. You kind of tend to just make it creative. So I kind of just got into doing, I was working a job. I was doing posters and, health and safety stuff, that kind of thing. Anything I could do that was just kind of cool and take me away from the grind stuff. And then I got into kind of making a video at that job with a good friend of mine. And that was just a blast. And we had a real good fun doing it. And that was kind of back in around, sort of, I think, 2012, 2014. And that just, there was a weird thing, when you sort of do something and all of a sudden you go, that's what I need to do. That's it. You try this little facet and you go, that's it. It's just click. That's what I need to do. And I loved it so much. And I just really felt every little creative kind of, pore in my body just get super excited and just be like completely fulfilled doing it. And I just threw myself into every facet, editing, kind of, how do I shoot this? How do I kind of, and it was just all self-trained, really. And I would go to a lot of events, Comic Cons, that sort of thing, and hone my craft. And that was where I met a TV studio who were basically doing a similar thing, shooting one of the shows I worked on, which was Phantasmagoria, which was a Comic Con into a TV show, essentially. And we aligned, we kind of like, oh yeah, that's, you're doing what we're doing, let's join forces. So that's how that came about. And then obviously, again, doing TV stuff, that led into kind of, oh, I'll do this bit on a film, or I'll do this poster for a film. And I did some, VFX for a film. I was kind of on-set VFX supervisor. And then, it just snowballs. You do one kind of job, it leads to another, it leads to another. You meet some great people. That's what it's all about, the people you meet, the connections. And, oh, I'm working on this job, we need a VFX guy, or I'm working on this job, we need an editor, or I need some help editing. Can you come and help me? And it just kind of goes from there, really. So it's really good fun.
Yeah, and like the communal thing and like the networking feels very corporate to say. So like as you're meeting people on all those different jobs, I've been in some sort of broadcasting for almost 20 years, and like it really is just getting to know people and like just talking to people. And suddenly it's like, hey, do you want to come like sit in the studio while we're doing our morning show and we'll just talk whatever? And it's like, sure. And then in the studio, it's like, well, what are you doing with that thing? Like, what does that do? Oh, and then suddenly you're learning what that thing does. And like, that's kind of how, I have learned and moved from doing mainly audio radio stuff into video stuff. Cause I was like, well, video is fun. Like, what do I do with that? And then, it's like, yeah, well, I can run a camera. Okay, cool. Well, you're in the truck when we're building the graphics. Do you want to see how we're building the graphics? Sure. Well, then how do you make the graphics show at the right time? Well, that's our video switcher. Do you want to see that? And then suddenly it's like, oh, well, now I know how to do everything in the room, and I can show up every day and be like, where do you need me? Like, whatever. I can run all the camera positions. I can do all the stuff in the truck. Like, what do you need? And that's the like intangible thing that, yeah, they talk about it when you're in school, but you don't understand how to do, like, you don't actually learn how to do it until you're doing it. And then suddenly you're like, oh, this is what they meant. And like, it's that stay hungry attitude that I think, like, as creative people, I just think that's one of the characteristics of creatives, is like being hungry and wanting to learn and wanting to grow and never settle. So like, to sound very corporate, like where do you see yourself producing or making or creating like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like what's your, do you have a trajectory, or are you just like focus on the project? This is the thing. What's the next project?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a goal necessarily. I kind of, follow the creativity, I think, a little bit. So again, like you said, you spoke brilliantly, kind of exactly what it's like when you're on stage. You gel with these people, you kind of meet these strangers and they become like your best friends. It's great. It becomes your little like family for a while you're working on a project, and then your extended family. Then you, as you said, you move on to other things. You learn all these extra little jobs. It's great. So yeah, I don't think it's anything. I haven't got a goal. It's like, oh, I need to work for a studio, or I think I like having that control. I think some of the trouble, or some of the trouble I've seen with peers who have kind of been in the same industry, they move up and their goal was, oh, I want to work for the studio, or I want to do a big studio movie. But the trouble with that is, as a creative, you lose all control. It's then, it's somebody else's money, it's somebody else's control. And they kind of then dictate on how it turns out. We've seen it, haven't we, with a lot of comic book movies, that if they hire somebody because of that person's really good at what they do, and then all of a sudden the studio get involved and they start messing around with things and they change it and reshoots and reshoots and reshoots, and then it never looks like what the original version was going to look like, which would have been good, and then the messed around version is not very good. So I mean, I'd never say never, and it's not that I wouldn't want to kind of work with any big studios or do anything like that. I just, if it's a passion project and something that I'm creating myself, I think as long as I've kind of got that outcome, I can see what the final version of it's going to be like, and I've got that kind of little bit of control on it, then I think I'm happy. That's what I love about the kind of indie realm, is it's great. You have that. Yes, sometimes it's a bit more, it's a bit of a struggle bus, but ultimately you kind of, it's more rewarding, I think, because you put that much blood and sweat into it, and you kind of at the end of it feel a bit more kind of grateful and proud of what you've done, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do think that like that's the special thing, like that's the special sauce that's missing, personally, from a lot of like the big two comics, is the heart that indie creators are putting into their work. Because it's like, it took someone working a lot of time to make this book happen, and it wasn't just like oh, I showed up and like hammered out a script and then sent it off, and then it was sent to a random, like an artist, and like this was people working hand in hand to make the thing, and then hustling to get it out, and hustling to produce it, and hustling to get it printed and published and distributed, and like all of those things take time. And like those are the things I had no idea until I worked on a movie shoot, just how much goes into making a movie. It was like, oh yeah, you got cameras and you set them up and you record. It's like, no, you record the same thing like 3 or 4 ways from 3 or 4 different setups, and every setup takes tear down and set up to do. And so suddenly you're like, oh, it's 4 a.m. and we're still filming what we like, what's going to end up being like a 9-minute video, and we started at 10 a.m. this morning, and here it is 4 a.m. and okay, we got 2 more shoots left, like let's just go.
Yeah, let's get it done.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
Yeah. I think that passion and like that drive makes those, however long of a day that would be, worth it, because then suddenly it's like, no, I've got skin in this game, and I want to see this come, and I want to see it be the best that it can be. And so having someone like you that's in that director seat and like has that drive, like those are the best hands that I think Hades could possibly be asking for, of like, yeah, this, he gets it, like he gets it. Was he like, here's all of our books, like read it and get familiar, like did you already know ASAP Imagination books before then?
So firstly, thank you for that. I appreciate your comments. That was great. Yeah, no. So I kind of, where I'm so busy, I unfortunately don't kind of get to kind of read that much anymore, as much as I would like to. Finding downtime is like the holy grail at the moment. Trying to bounce between project and project, and family time and other bits and bobs. So, and you just try and claw anytime you can. But I was kind of looking around, and I think I'd seen a lot of their social media stuff as well. And it's like there's other comics or companies I see sort of indies coming up, and I'm like, oh, their stuff looks really good. I got to kind of check that out. So I think it was on a list of stuff I was on to check out. But then once he approached, he kind of said, look, we've got these kind of characters. This is our timeline. Again, one of the I think the best things about joining forces with something like Games is the free comics. I get to read some of the stuff for free,
Yeah.
which is great. But like, the thing is now I've got the bug for it, so now I've got to buy the whole library now, because you've got to support them. You can't just have everything for free. So now, and I want them on my bookshelf because I'm a physical media kind of guy. So, I've got to buy the backlog now. But yeah, looking through and kind of reading it instantly, I did feel a bit of a kinship to some of the characters, and when he sort of said, well, he kind of gave me options of, this is who we kind of want to lead with, or what do you think? Do you think, would this work better? Would that work better? So yeah, I was quite honoured really that, kind of trusted my opinion and kind of said, well, this is what I want to do from a visual standpoint. How does that work? What do you think? So yeah, instantaneously it was a very good kind of partnership that we knew we could put a bit of trust in each other. I think he felt secure. That's why in the first meeting he was kind of like, let's fill this out, see if this is the right kind of guy that I want to bring this to the live action. And equally again, kind of speaking to him, I was like, is this somebody I kind of, want to really sort of try and bring this forward for him, or is this, am I not the right fit for, to do this justice to this world? So yeah, it was a good sort of conversation back and forward. But ultimately, we both were like, this is kind of kismet. This is kind of the right thing to do. Again, the way we kind of crossed paths felt kind of very, Matrix, and it was like, this is the right path. Walk the one, Neo. This is it. So yeah, I'm a strong believer in kind of, the path will be put in front of you. And I don't believe in coincidences. I think the universe kind of provides, and the way it all kind of worked out, this seemed like a perfect match for the pair of us. I think so.
That's awesome. I'm stoked that the project is already funded, so that means that we're for sure getting the short film for the conversation. I don't want to keep you because it's getting on 3 a.m. for you. So, but I will. So I always love the thing I love about doing, specifically having people come on Box Talk, is I love talking to non-comics people that are doing the thing in the DIY mindset. And it very much feels like you're the creative person, you've got the drive, and you're doing things how you want to see them done, which is just like peak DIY. It's very punk rock of you. So like, I apologize if this catches you off guard, but like, I would love to hear like anything that you want people that are watching this now, or I'm going to get it posted later, like anybody that catches up with this, what's something that you would say to that person that might be listening just to hear your perspective?
Okay, so what is it from an advice point of view, or just?
It could be an advice of like, I've been doing this for now, and like this is something that I learned, like go network. It could be like go back the conversation on Kickstarter. Yeah, and anything that you just want people specifically to hear from you, in the realm of like the majority of people that watch this are DIY people themselves.
Right, yeah. So I mean, I think other than obviously, please do support us on Kickstarter. The conversation, get on there, get the rewards. There's some great rewards on there, physical media, the kind of posters, all that other good stuff. But ultimately, just if people are watching this and they're kind of thinking about stepping into the world of anything creative, whether it's films or TV or kind of making their own comic, they got a story, they got an idea, and they're kind of like, oh well, how do I do this? What do I do? As you said before, do it. Just get out there and kind of do these things. The wonder of this modern age is technology everywhere. It's making it so much easier for people like us and sort of scrappy kind of people who want to get in and just get their hands dirty and create something out of nothing. It's so easy now to kind of just do it. Just get out there. Don't worry about whether it's going to be the best or whether it's going to be a certain standard. I think just get out there, do something, get your work out there, get your ideas out there, because go into Comic Cons or go into the place, if it's films or it's comics or whatever your passion is, if you go to that place where it's going to fit best, you will run into people and you'll meet people who can either help you bring your dream to life, or, can give you the best advice of where you go, or they might have contacts, or, they know a guy from something else, and they can help you bring it. So just don't sleep on your dreams, and don't worry about, oh, tomorrow I'll put it on the shelf. If it sits on the shelf, it just collects dust. So get out there and, do something creative, make something, draw something, and just share it with the world. Share it on Instagram, share it on social media, and, just keep that kind of imagination going, really. Let's not lose that focus and not lose that creative drive from everybody. I think it's now more than ever, it's kind of really important that we all do it. So, it's great.
Love that. I love that. Check, check, check. I also would get in trouble with my wife if I didn't ask you, do you have a favorite snack that is local to your region? We have a really nice international market that has like some really obscure items from literally all over the place. And so every time I talk to anybody that's not in the States, I'm like, what's your favorite snack? And I've been able to find some, and then some totally elude me. But
Right. So it's a weird one. It's literally, it's branded over here. You may have heard of it, you may not have, but it's branded over here as a product that you either love it or you hate it. There seems to be no middle ground. People either love it or they hate it. And a lot of Americans and other people across, different countries, again, they're very to and fro from it. So that would be something called Marmite. Have you ever heard of Marmite before?
I have heard of Marmot.
Yeah. So Marmite, I love. It's great on toast. It's, it's just this weird kind of tangy. They do a crisp form of it with us, and they're called Twiglets, is what they're called. And they're basically these kind of crunchy stick type fiber crisps that you can eat, and they're covered in kind of Marmite. They're the same thing, but Marmite is a really, that's a go-to for me. I make sure all the kids are here. My when I first met my partner, she didn't like it. She was like, I don't like that. It's horrible. And I was like, it's lovely. You'll grow to love it. And she eats it now more than I do, probably. But it's an acquired taste. I think it might take a few tries, but definitely I'm an advocate for Marmite. Go Marmite, try it, Chris, see what you think. And if you do, I want to know what you think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll see first if I can find like authentic instead of just like, oh yeah, we made this in Michigan and sent it to, it's definitely the real I'm gonna be looking for the real thing. Perfect. Dude, this was great. I'm so glad that the scheduling and stuff worked out. Thank you for staying up as late as you
You're
did.
welcome. You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I love talking to people, and like, especially, I mean, I love comics. Comics are always a thing, but like, I love movies too. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love movie. I just love storytelling, really, is what it comes down to. And so, thanks for telling stories and for creating movies and creating stuff that others can be entertained by. I appreciate it. Where can people, what's the best way that people can keep up with you?
Probably social media. I've got a website, badmosquitofilms.com. At Bad Mosquito Films on everything from X, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. So yeah, any of those, follow us, and obviously ASAP Imagination as well. Follow them. Just at ASAP Imagination. But yeah, just keep an eye on the socials. Kind of anything we post. Any of the once my NDAs lift on certain things and I'm allowed to talk about other projects, I post on there and say what we're kind of working on, what's coming out. So and I share it. So yeah, no, just follow us on there and just keep up with what's going on. Back Kickstarter or follow it, or even just share it to keep investment on it. And yeah, that's it. Just thank you, Chris, for giving me your platform. I appreciate it. And thank you for allowing us to kind of tell people what we're kind of up to and giving us that kind of platform. It's wonderful. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Well, I will be in touch. I'll send you a message with logistics. I don't expect anything from you tonight. You need to go to bed, sir. But yeah, I'll send you logistics and stuff here on Instagram after this. But for everybody else, thanks for tuning in, checking this out. If you're listening to it after the fact, the conversation is probably still running on Kickstarter. It has 11 more days as of this date. You said June 2nd was the final day.
That's it. Yep.
So you have until June 2nd to back the conversation and make a brand new adventure happen. That helmet is insane. I saw a screenshot of you with that from another podcast, and I was like,
Yep.
I hope you that helmet the entire time I talked to him. I didn't want to put pressure on you because I didn't know what it causes, but that's a sick. Did you make that helmet?
So,
Like how?
so that's been 3D printed. It's really thick. I mean,
No.
you probably can't see the camera. But it's yeah. There's a lot of work gone into that to create it, and all the kind of battle damage that's on there. It's actually a piece of art. It really is. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. I'd put it on, but I think the actor playing the role would kill me because he's quite method. He's very Shakespearean, so he kind of would not like that. But we also have foes there as well. There you
Okay.
go. A little poster recreation for
There
you.
they are. That's so awesome. Yeah. And those. Well, all the best. Now that you've been on, we'll be in touch all the time. You're not going to be able to get rid of me. So.
No, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. No, I'm going to be watching more of those unboxing videos and getting in and watching more of your videos. So no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, Ben, have a great night. Everybody else that tuned in, thanks for tuning in and checking it out. And what's a good podcast without a good tagline? This one's mine. So go do what's good for you, punks, and read some indie comics or watch some indie movies because we are out of here. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Chris.